Okay, welcome to Holly and the Home Medic. First things first, right?
Yeah.
I can't tell you how excited I am to talk about little furry, nasty creatures that makes people. I won't admit that they give me the shivers.
The heebity jeebities.
That's right. You know, it's funny. As I was growing up, I didn't have a problem with a live mouse. You know, if I saw a live one, I was like, okay, well, that's something that's got to be killed, dealt
Fair
with.
enough.
But when it was dead and in a trap,
They're just somehow grosser.
Yeah, it was eerie and scary.
Now, I will say I had a pet rat, like a legitimate pet rat. She was albino. She was adorable, by the way. She's about this big. Her name was Gidget.
Oh.
Super cute, albino, red eyes and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But that is not what we're talking about. Not the cute ones. Mine was cute.
So I was doing something that some of the viewers might recognize. It was called home teaching at the time.
Okay.
And they brought out their little rat, and this rat climbs up my arm, and I'm like, okay, that's interesting. I guess there's nothing to be concerned about. But then I noticed there were little pee spots all the way up my arm. And
Gidget didn't usually pee on me.
Yeah.
Gidget liked me.
Oh, so they only pee on you if they don't like
They're
you.
like marking, and she peed on me at first, but then she didn't pee on me as much. Poop was frequent.
So, yeah, they told me, oh, don't worry about that. Rats pee everywhere they go. And I'm like,
they do.
There's pee on my arm. So in this segment, we're going to talk about mice, not necessarily rats, but I guess rats might apply to much of this. Mm-hmm. And the lovely diseases that they bring into our home and how to deal with that. And that's why this is High Octane for your Super Mom Break.
Yep.
Okay, so starting with stories, it sounds like you've got the best one already, but...
Gidget was pretty cute.
I went into a pet store once, and they were talking up this rat, and I'm like, but it's got that tail. And I was like, well, squirrels I like better. And
they're bushy and cute.
Yeah, and she goes, yeah, the tail. And
the tail.
It's almost like she was offended, like I'd insulted one of her children.
Well, you were at a pet store.
That's right.
I mean, if you've been talking to some random homeless person and you offended their rat, I mean, that's a little different.
Yeah, that's a little different. So, in my early career as a home inspector, mm-hmm. I walked into a home and they said, this is going to be a unique one. And I'm like, I don't even know what normal looks like, so let me have it. And we walked into this place that they said hadn't been opened in 18 months.
Okay.
And so I walk in and we look around and the mice had been there. And they had figured out that people weren't there. So the mice had been everywhere.
Just overtook it.
You could not take a step and not crush a half dozen mouse turds.
Ugh.
You couldn't put your hand on the counter and not touch mouse feces.
Right.
You couldn't go anywhere. I've taught classes on what I call the fear factor items. You remember the fear factor show?
I sure do.
Even though you're the young super mom.
No, I remember Fear Factor.
Yeah.
There was this little part of me that was like bizarrely intrigued.
Uh-huh.
And then the rest of me was like, why am I watching this? It's like a train wreck. Like, I can't look away. Yeah, Fear Factor, I remember.
So I used that fear factor title just to kind of describe what we were really talking about as I viewed it as relates to radon and lead and all that. Mm-hmm. And we did include a segment on Hantavirus, which Hantavirus and mice, for me, are kind of the same thing.
You kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah, because it's the mice, and there are some other furry little creatures also that get Hantavirus, and then they drop their beautiful little feces and urine wherever they do, and then that gets in contact with people, and then people start either being dead or just wishing they were. And so as I was teaching this class to real estate agents, I found that pretty much, and I'd get maybe 15 people in each class, but I found that in pretty much every other class, there would be one person who either got it themselves and almost died, or they had Aunt Gladys that got it and maybe she did die, or they knew somebody close who had a real problem with hantavirus. And I'm like, this is a much bigger problem than all these other things that get the headlines. But yet it doesn't, and you can only guess that it's because mice have been around and known and dealt with for millennia. Hantavirus is actually it's a virus. It comes in on the feces, and basically, if you're looking at mouse poop, I want you to think hantavirus. So what I don't want you to do though is look at mouse poop, think hantavirus, and go grab the broom.
Okay.
Because as you are sweeping up that mouse poop, you are disturbing the stuff, and now it's getting into the air as part of the dust, and you can be breathing it that way.
Okay. So that actually brings up an interesting thing. Okay, so I have a storage unit right now that has a number of items in it, one of which is an older couch.
Right.
And my husband and I went to go grab some Christmas and winter items from our storage unit. And he had been frequenting the storage unit, but I hadn't been there in a while. And so we go in and I'm looking and I'm like, oh my gosh, what is it? What? That's mouse poop. There's mouse poop all over. All over. It's like on the couch. It's on a bunch of the boxes and things like that. And he was like, oh, just, get it out of the way. And I was like, okay. So I did. So whoops. That was a no-no. Don't do that. But now I'm like, do we want to consider getting rid of said couch?
Children and older adults, like 80 plus, they are more susceptible to that, and it is far more likely to cause death in those
in the extreme
populations.
Okay.
So, yes, and my first thought about storage units, I've done that myself, and I threw a bunch of stuff that I thought I couldn't part with.
Right.
To move into this house. And as we were building this one, we had that stuff there, and we lived in the townhome for about a year, and after about 6 months in that townhome, I thought, I don't even remember what's in there, and whatever it is, I don't need it.
Yeah, we've definitely had that, so word to the wise. Maybe don't get a storage unit unless you actually think you're going to hang on to those things for quite a while, because...
Yeah, been there, done that.
I wanted to keep that couch, but now I'm like, if it means I have to deal with mouse poop...
And then you save the $150 a month.
Maybe I don't want the couch.
So let's say that let's go back over both scenarios. Let's say that you don't want the couch, and let's say that you do want the couch.
Okay, got it.
Which one should we do first?
Let's say I don't want to keep the couch.
Okay, so what we don't want to do is just go bulldozing in there.
And just yank everything out.
And yank everything out, because there's not going to be just mouse poop on the couch. It's going to be throughout the unit.
Well, and with the urine, you probably can't see that.
Right. And let me digress for a moment. One of my real estate agents, he personally went out on a lake, and he was drinking some Pepsi. And he ended up with hantavirus because apparently just before he drank that Pepsi, there was a mouse that tried to drink it before him. And speaking of urine...
All right, I don't know that I'll be drinking Pepsi anytime soon. Continue.
Yeah, wonder if we can get a Coke endorsement.
Because all of a sudden we're like bagging on the other ones. Well, that actually is like... Again, sorry, digressing a little bit, but there are a lot of people that store, my in-laws included, a bunch of food and like canned goods and sodas and things like that in like garages and pantry, like cold storage pantries, things like that mice could very well be skittering across and leaving presents.
One of the, and we will get back to the storage unit, but one of the other homes that I built a billion years ago, when I looked a lot more like you, only my hair wasn't as long.
Maybe slightly less hair.
Yes.
Less makeup, hopefully.
And no glasses. But, so I was moving slowly into that because I had just a little Nissan truck with a small bed. So I'd bring over one or two things at a time, basically, whatever fit in that bed. And part of that was the marshmallows and the popcorn and the rice and the chocolate chips.
Oh, those, yeah, absolutely. You bring those with you wherever you go.
Yeah. Gotta have
Marshmallows,
those.
I don't know, chocolate chips, those come with you.
So I had all that in the storage room in that side of the basement. And then I moved in and I went to get the washer and dryer, hooked it up, and there was a tornado happening inside that washer and dryer. Well, the dryer. And it wasn't a good tornado. So I pulled it back out and looked, and I had chocolate chips and rice and popcorn and marshmallows that were blowing out of the back of this dryer, and mouse poop.
So how do you test? You like lick them and like, nope, that's a chocolate chip. That is not a chocolate chip. Like, is that
That one was not chocolate.
chocolate or poop?
So then I had a big mess to clean up, and I had to do so carefully because, again, hantavirus.
Okay.
So, part of the story as relates to hantavirus management and keeping your family alive and your kids out of the hospital is to put that sort of thing in a plastic bin that the mice can't get into.
Okay.
So let's go back to the storage unit.
Okay.
And now we've got chocolate chips and rice in the
That aren't
storage
really
unit.
chocolate chips.
And so you got the mouse poop all over the place. You probably go in with clothes that you know you're going to wash immediately. You don't want to just use like a painter's dust mask.
That's not sufficient?
Yeah, you can get those for a couple bucks. They're not sufficient.
Okay, that's good to know because we have a couple of those left over that I probably would have just assumed was sufficient.
Yeah. Yeah, the hantavirus is much smaller, and
Okay.
it can go right through that filter. So you want to actually use a full face mask with a screw-in cartridge.
So no little mask is sufficient.
Yeah, it's
You need like a legit.
it's better than nothing, but it's not good enough.
Okay.
And so, if you don't want to go spend $200 on a full face mask, then you're rolling the dice with.
You're playing Russian roulette with mouse poop
Yes.
and the hantavirus.
Mickey Mouse roulette. I don't know.
So are we gonna get in trouble with Disney? You mentioned it getting ground into clothing. We're gonna assume it's ground into the couch, and I happen to know that it is because my husband, while frequenting the storage unit, had to grab things that were in the back. So he would climb on the couch
Right?
to get, so any little poops are
Yes.
probably ground into the fabric. So actually, we're not gonna worry about the hypothetical that we're gonna keep it because we're really gonna get rid of it. Although we should still hypothetically talk about it. But how then can you determine what is safe to keep?
So, and this kind of fits into the thought process that happens with meth and asbestos as well.
Okay.
So if this is a cloth couch, then it would be possible for the poop to get ground into the fibers, where if it's maybe a leather couch, it would be a lot more easily cleanable.
Okay. This is fabric. Goodbye, couch.
Yes.
Nice to know you. So that means like if we kept like winter clothing, summer clothing, maybe that wasn't sealed super well, we need to be aware of that. Would just a nice hot wash cycle take care of it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
so,
it would.
So that's not necessarily anything cloth immediately get rid of and burn. Pretend it has the plague. No, this is like, okay, I don't think
Right.
that that's going to be sufficient for my couch.
And
But
what
for
I would
clothing,
do,
I can keep.
oh, I've got another good mouse story. I've
We
been
have
in this
lots of
business
good
way too long.
stories.
What I would do if you've
That'll
got
be in the outtakes.
a tied bag of clothes, I would look around the bag and see if a mouse is eating his way through.
Yeah. Well, and some of our things are just boxes, but the lids aren't like sealed. They're just, the flaps are just kind of, like what you do with boxes. You just keep the flaps in just like this.
Yeah, and so if a mouse can get in, then you'll want to be careful about
Okay.
that.
Okay, well, that's good to know. Okay.
In the scenario where we're keeping that couch,
Okay.
hypothetically, let's say that it's leather,
Okay.
you can just wipe it off with Clorox wipes.
And that's enough to.
And yeah, and then you can get the faces. Now, if you've got mouse poop down in the creases, that gets a little harder.
Okay.
So what you might want to do if we're saving that couch is you start by vacuuming maybe the creases with a HEPA vacuum. You can just get a shop vac, put a HEPA
So like
filter
normal
in there.
vacuum isn't enough because it just releases it into the.
Yeah, so what you're doing with a normal vacuum is you're blowing it into the bag, and then again those virus can go back through the bag and into
Because
the
they're
air.
just so small that they just.
And you can do the same thing with a shop vac. If you just use a regular filter, they can blow back into the
Okay,
air.
so the HEPA filter is crucial because it catches those smaller particles.
Right.
Good to know. Okay.
HEPA is like high efficiency particulate something or other. So basically, it's got a denser grid, and it will keep the hantavirus inside the vacuum.
Okay, that's good to know. I would have just normal vacuumed it up.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and then depending on what kind of vacuum you have, sometimes when you dump that, sometimes you're dumping a bag, and sometimes you're opening up this plastic cylinder.
That's how ours is. You just the bottom falls out and it just, but there's dust that gets everywhere.
Yeah, on the dust. So well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to, whether or not we see mouse poop, if you are motivated to not deal with hantavirus, we're going to eliminate the reason why mice want to be wherever we don't want them to be, whether it be the storage unit, whether it be the house. We're going to eliminate what I call the root cause.
Okay.
And for mice, we're eliminating food and shelter.
I was just gonna say it's food, right?
Right.
Because, well, and see that was part of what confused me actually, because I didn't think that I had anything edible in the storage unit. I might have saved like some canisters of spices. Because we didn't plan on having, nobody plans on having their stuff in storage that long. That is a whole separate video. That is, anyway. But other than that, I'm trying to think. I don't think I have food.
So what might have happened in a storage unit is the neighboring unit has...
Those stinkers.
They've
I don't
got
even
the
know who
food.
they are. Those turds.
Send them a dirty letter.
Strongly worded letter. How dare you?
So your unit may not actually be food, but it might be shelter.
Okay.
And so you got to deal with that. And same with the house. So eliminating food inside the house is fairly straightforward. Eliminating shelter means that we've got to eliminate all the pathways in to the house. I've got another story. This is McKay. She has one of those snow shacks.
Okay.
Or had. And, that includes the flavoring and a whole bunch of sugar that goes with the snow shacks.
And everyone loves sugar.
So during the winter, and chocolate.
And chocolate.
During the
Mostly
winter, she stored her sugar in the basement.
Okay.
Thus far, this is a really boring story. Until the mice found out that she had sugar in her basement.
Oh dear.
And, we've got hundreds of pounds of sugar that are stored down there. And they found that, and pretty soon, before she knew it, she had hundreds of mice
Oh my word.
in her house. And you've got the basement that was wrapped with that insulation.
Oh, okay.
So they were going over, eating the sugar, and then living and breeding inside the insulation.
Oh dear.
And she had me come over one day, and we decided to try and scare the mice so that they would jump out, and then they would fall into these buckets where they would drown.
Okay.
That worked for 3 of them.
There were probably more than 3 of them.
We watched another 50 go up and over and out into the house.
Awesome. Where does this person live, by the way?
Not too far away from here.
Awesome. I'm going to not move here.
Yes. So once you've got them in, I mean, the shelter becomes a non-issue. The front door has already been breached, and they're in. So what she had to do, of course, was eliminate the access to the sugar, and then she called in an
about 17
exterminator.
cats.
And one of those mice, I guess, again, she had hundreds, but one of them decided to announce his death by
Very dramatically.
walking into the living room where they were all at, and pretty much going to the center of the living room and then collapsing. So as the super mom, I'm guessing that you probably want to have your husband and yourself and your child in your home,
I do, generally, yes.
and nobody else.
Yes, that sounds great, actually.
And especially the guests that are uninvited, it's always the less welcome guests that stay the longest.
Yeah, in-laws. I mean, mice. Kidding.
Yeah. So again, it's a matter of eliminating food and shelter. And if you've got holes, sometimes I'll see holes maybe around the AC unit where you've got those two pipes that go from the AC condenser into the house. Often that is open enough that a mouse can get in. Here's my Jill story.
Okay.
So she had a dryer next to her master bedroom. And it vented out to the exterior, and it didn't have a dryer vent. It just kind of protruded out a couple of feet and then just was open.
Okay.
And it was a couple of feet up from the ground.
So are you talking like those big...
Yeah, the 4-inch metal.
Oh, that
dryer
sometimes have
vents.
the little flappy thingy on
Yeah,
it? That,
only the flappy wasn't there.
The flappy wasn't there. Got it. Okay. Now I know where we're going with this. Okay. Continue.
So the mice that were living in that vicinity were jumping up into that 4-inch vent,
Oh, because it was nice and toasty warm.
walking in
smelled of
through her
lavender.
dryer vent, and then getting into her house. And of course, she loves mice, kind of like a lot of other super moms do.
I like pet mice in cages named
Yeah.
Gidget.
One of these mice found his way into her shoe one day.
Oh no.
As she was about to put it on. This was a traumatic moment.
I
I think she
can
still
imagine.
got PTSD from that.
I imagine so.
And then she found another one on top of her favorite sweater. And so she naturally
Moved
threw
away.
the sweater. Yeah, moved away. Burned the house down.
Burn the house down.
And so she called me and was like, be my hero, fix this problem. And I went over and I was like, okay, this is the corner of the house where we're seeing mice. So how are they getting into this corner? And I quickly found this dryer vent. So I shortened it and I put the flappy thing on it, and life was good for her.
Okay.
So it kind of fits into the $10 fix, $10,000 fix thing.
Yeah.
You know, it cost me a few bucks to buy a flappy thing.
There's got to be a better name for that. The
Well,
flappy
it's
thing.
dryer vent cover, but flappy thing is so much more descriptive.
It's more palatable. It's
That's
fine.
right. So, you know, these are things that you can easily take care of for either no dollars or just a few dollars.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Or a
going
cat.
back to the $10,000 fix, now, you know, the $10,000 fix is probably a lot more
Extermination
expensive.
or something like that.
Well, or having a child in the hospital.
Yeah, that too.
Or, you know, I understand that funerals are about that much.
That is true.
So
I mean, not that I would know. I haven't paid for one, but
that's
I've
a
heard
good
they're
thing.
pricey.
That's a good thing. So,
Now, I mean, are cats actually a legitimate way to? I think cats are great. My husband, not so much. Mm-hmm. I mean, like about the time I see mouse dropping, should I be like, "Oh no, honey, we must get a cat"? Oh no, darn it!
I will never say a good thing about cats.
Okay, I will say we had a really awesome cat growing up. This cat was like the bomb. My dad hates cats, and he really liked this one. And he was a very good mouser. Mm-hmm. And he would bring them to the doorstep and present them
As
and their
gifts.
corpses to us.
Yeah, just the
as
head
gifts.
sometimes. Yeah, been there, done that. Yeah, cats will actually do good things there and keep the mouse population down. My thing is, you know, before you do cats and poison, I mean, there's nothing wrong with those, but my thing first is to try and identify and eliminate the reason why the mouse are there.
Yeah,
mice
the
are there.
$10 fix. Try to go, okay, where's the little flappy thing? It's missing. Problem solved. Fix the flappy thing.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Okay.
Or maybe we're sealing a hole in the masonry. As I grew up, I was in one of those old red brick 1960s homes, and I'd hear this scratching in my wall in the basement. And I was sure they were between the paneling and the concrete foundation. Turns out they were actually on the outside of the house, climbing up the red brick until they got in at the eaves of the house.
Oh, okay.
And that's how they got in. And then they went back down into the storage unit or storage room next to me where they went after the marshmallows.
And the chocolate chips.
Yes,
And left their own chocolate chips.
of course.
I will say I do know that mice can fit in bizarrely small things.
Right.
They can squish themselves like you would not believe, those little stinkers. And you might look at a hole and go, it's this big. There's no way a normal sized mouse is fitting in there. No, they will. Like they can fit.
Right.
And something that's very flat, like under like doorways. Of correct me if I'm wrong, but I was under the impression they could get real darn small.
Yes, that is true.
So you might think that there's no way they're fitting in there, but they will.
Yeah. So let me ask you, let's say that you were to see maybe a mouse or a mouse poop in your house. Tell me what that scenario looks like. Where's the mouse/mouse poop, and what are you going to do about it?
I don't know, actually. I mean, that at what point do you go from setting a couple of mouse traps to you have a problem, you need to hire a professional, or there's a chance for the Hantavirus? I mean, where do you draw that line?
Yeah, and there's always a chance for a hantavirus if you see mice or mouse poop. So the first thing an exterminator might do is he might put out poisons, but he might just put out traps. So you're looking at let's say a half dozen mouse poops.
Okay.
And the first thing we're thinking is, okay, there is a disease that I don't want to get. So we're not just going to sweep it up.
Okay.
So first thing we're going to do...
And not just vacuum it up either, unless you
Right.
have the HEPA filter.
Right.
Okay.
And even if you got the HEPA filter, the first thing we're going to do is hit those mouse poops with any household disinfectant. Clorox, Lysol, 409.
Like just to spray?
Yeah, and
okay.
because that's going to hopefully kill the virus.
Okay.
And then while the material is still wet, now we're going to clean it up.
Okay.
And if it's wet, obviously, and it's in a muddy condition, we're much less likely to get dusts in the air as we're disturbing
Okay,
that
that
stuff.
makes sense.
So then you're just going to use just good gloves, good rubber gloves, and get it up.
Okay. So, I just kind of want to make sure I understand kind of a recap here. When in doubt, assume there's the hantavirus, because it's pretty likely that if there are mouse feces that it's there.
Right. Yeah. If you're not going to know, so you just have to assume that it's there.
Yeah. Don't assume it's not. Just always, when in doubt, just assume it's there. Vacuum is a no-no unless you have the appropriate protective gear. Mask with a canister thing, those little paint ones are not sufficient.
Right.
And a HEPA filter on the vacuum that will help collect those particles. And never sweep, that's a no-no. So I've got Lysol spray or a disinfectant spray of some kind. Spritz it down with those so that it helps not only get it wet, so fewer particles are released into the air, but it helps to hopefully kill some of the virus as well. Then with a protective clothing like clothes you don't care about, frankly, that you can get rid of if you need to, and good rubber gloves. Do you need a mask at that point if it's been wetted a little bit?
If it's been wetted, yeah, I'm not going to say you don't need one, but but it's much less important.
Okay. I would probably at least have this kind.
Wouldn't hurt.
At the
they
very
only cost a
least.
few bucks. So.
Yeah, at the very least, spritz it down so it's wet, and then have one of these guys.
So, do you feel like you're ready to go chase that next mouse?
I feel like I'm ready to let someone else do it, namely the cat that I'm going to convince my husband we need to get. But I feel a little bit more like, kind of like the more you know, the more prepared you are. I didn't realize that that virus was so prevalent. And the fact that it's in our storage unit, and every time we're moving stuff, it's like scraping boxes across that couch. I mean, frankly, we're lucky we're still alive. I don't want to keep doing that, so I'm not going to bring my daughter with me to the storage unit anymore. And I'm probably going to start wiping off the tops of my soda cans.
Yes.
Probably going to do that. And I think my mom told me once, when you open, like with a can opener, like a can of beans or corn or something,
that you need the top.
Do you need to rinse off the top? And I always was like, I don't care about dust, it's fine. I think I'm going to do that now.
Okay, Holly, you are now officially, and I'm declaring it so, you are now the official super mom in the category, well, in all categories.
Well, yes,
now
but more
especially
specifically
in the furry, four-legged, small creature category.
Sounds good. Thanks.